You tell him, King Leo, you silly boy.
So, we love anime on this podcast because in mostly, if not every episode, we're either talking about some type of anime episode. We're saying what we think about the episode. We're saying what we think about the series, or what we think about this, what we think about that, or like what we think this character would do, how this character would do in this show, or these two characters versus each other. But we also like to get deep into like the more darker parts of anime. We kind of like to get into the parts that a lot of people stray away from, the relatable parts that kind of make anime relatable to my life, relatable to your lives, relatable to real life just as people. We kind of like to break the boundary of reality and fiction between anime and the real world. And I want to do that in today's episode also with one of my favorite anime shows, and that show being Soul Eater, because I feel like Soul Eater, it has a lot of relatable points in it, because a lot of the things that the characters go through are a lot of relatable things that a lot of us as regular people go through, with a lot of it being madness, fear, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and trust, emotional connection. And I feel like a lot of those plot points are just dropped in the show, but we kind of overlook it because of all the cool and like flashy animations, and we kind of don't really see the deeper part of the story. But today, that's what I want to break down, the deeper like parts of Soul Eater. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the psychology and just everything behind Soul Eater, of how they turned mental illnesses into a cool anime show. So firstly, how I want to start this off is I want to talk about Ashura, because Ashura is the main antagonist. For those of you who haven't watched Soul Eater, Ashura is the main Kishin of Soul Eater. He's the main filter of the madness. But Ashura also has fear, and his madness turns into fear, and then it later turns into anxiety, because his counterpart is trust, and emotional like connection. Because in the end of Soul Eater, when Maka has to trust in her friends and she says their power is trust and friendship and love, Ashura starts to become scared for the first time in his life. He starts to become afraid, and we see that because his madness, it builds up, and then his fear, it starts to turn him insane to the point to where he starts going crazy from the fear of the trust and the love that he's seeing from Maka and her friends. Because throughout the whole entire final fight, Ashura is feeding off of the madness, and he's feeding off of their fear and the madness of everyone else. But when the tables get turned and it turns out Ashura starts to have fear of his own, and the madness starts to actually turn him insane instead of fuel him and give him power. And I kind of feel like that relates to a lot of different people, because if I can kind of flip this on its head and show you a more relatable view, I kind of feel like a lot of people, and even like mainly famous people, because if you go to think about it, a lot of people, no one really cares about you if you don't, one, have money, if you don't have anything going for you. And a lot of people kind of just overlook you. But let's take a popular streamer, for example. A popular streamer, everybody knows them. They have a lot of money, all the cars, just a lot of things going for them, big houses, all of that. And then let's just take like a homeless man, or just the average 9 to 5 worker, for example. An average 9 to 5 worker could be going through the biggest madness break. They can have the biggest amount of anxiety just built up around them, but nobody really cares about it, and nobody really kind of really focuses too much on it, because nobody really acknowledges this person too much. But the big streamer, if they're going through like a whole psychological break, or they're going through a whole psychotic episode, or they're having like a lot of anxiety, is more known and people will do more about it to fix it because everybody knows this person more, or everybody's going to do whatever they can to try to help that person more. But even then, to flip it into Soul Eater terms and kind of tie it in, Ashura is the strongest, or well, was the strongest character so far in Soul Eater, because he almost killed Death. It was a 1v3 with him versus the top three Meisters in the DWMA, and he almost beat them. And when he kind of had his whole madness and psychotic break, it was more on like a mass scale. But it's not to say like everybody focused on him, but he was the strongest. So his psychotic break was on a larger scale. And so it was kind of more eyes were on him than on anything. But with Stein, for example, Stein's struggle when he was going through with the madness, when Stein was going through with the whole psychotic break, not too many people really focused on him a lot. Stein also, he was more secluded than a lot of other people. He was a lot more secluded, but even then, not too many people focused on Stein. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to get, is that not too many people focus on those who really need the help. Not to say that a lot of famous people like the big streamer wouldn't need help, because they're people too. But a lot of people that really need the help, they get overlooked. And they get overlooked by a lot of bigger people. They just kind of get swept under the rug, so to say, and their whole kind of thing just kind of gets like pushed over, and it kind of just doesn't really get worried about. And that's even like not so much with like the whole psychology thing or like the whole madness and fear thing, but even just in life, a lot of people get overlooked and they get like just looked over by others. And even like in the workplace, or even just like in life in general, a lot of people, they don't really get the credit that they deserve for a lot of things. And to tie this all in, is that that's one of the main things that can lead to madness and to psychotic breaks and to fear and into anxiety. But if I didn't state this before, I'm going to state it now, that there is one thing that does counteract this, and that being love and trust, because there is a lot of madness and there is a lot of fear and anxiety and PTSD in Soul Eater, but there's also something else, and that being trust, love, connection, and emotional growth. Because you can't have a soul resonance if you don't have trust for your partner as a weapon, or if you don't have trust in your weapon as a Meister. You can't have soul resonance, and without soul resonance, you're not able to combat the madness or the fear of the Kishin. And we're going to take Stein for example again, because with, I forgot her name, but the Mjolnir, the hammer, Death Scythe, he was able to break through his madness by having that emotional connection with her, and she was able to help pull him from his madness. Even though he was deeply into it and he was deeply like rooted into the madness, he was still able to break free from it. And even with like Soul and Maka, they were able to combat Maka's PTSD by having trust and emotional growth and that connection and that love for each other. They were able to combat her PTSD from when her and Soul fought Krona and Ragnarok. So I guess really what the whole thing with this episode is that I'm trying to understand, or that I'm trying to relate to you guys, you all with, is no matter who you are, if you are a public figure, if you're famous, no matter if nobody really knows you, if you're not popular, if you are popular, that we all go through something. that we all have that madness in us. We all have that anxiety in us. We all have that pain, that fear. Some of us even have that PTSD in us. Don't be afraid to have connections and trust with people, because those are the things that combat the fear. Those are the things that combat all the issues that are deeply rooted in Soul Eater, because there's a lot of them, because everybody in Soul Eater has some type of madness in them, some type of fear, and it's the connections that they have with their friends, connection they have with their weapons, the connection they have with their Meister, that helps them combat all of these things. And that is the connection that we all must have as people to combat our mental issues and our mental disorders. We can't run from having that connection with people, especially not if we're going through our own form of madness or our own form of PTSD or our own form of fear. Because without having that balance, without having that connection, without having that soul resonance, even in a literal real world sense, having that soul resonance with someone, you'll just drown in it. And you won't be able to find your way out. You won't be able to have a mind of your own, because you'll be so stuck and so drowned in the madness of your own thoughts or depression that you'll just end up kind of like how Krona did. For example, having the self-doubt, the anxiety in himself, and having the toxic relationship with Medusa, Ragnarok, and just having the whole toxic relationship with the black blood in general, rather than having the heartwarming brother and sister relationship that Soul and Maka have. And it's just kind of like, you have to see what side of the coin would you rather be on. Is if you would rather be on the coin of having the whole toxic relationship with yourself than rather having a genuine connection relationship with either yourself or with someone else. Because having that connection with someone and them being able to be there to hold some of the pain that you're going through does way more than you can on your own, whether you're going through it or not going through it. It's still kind of like that too is better. And I guess just to really wrap this whole thing up is that no matter what, we all need that genuine connection, because everyone can't be strong all the time and everyone can't handle all their issues all the time. But just like Soul Eater shows us that you don't have to. You can have friends. You can even have, in a metaphorical sense, your weapon and Meister connection, and have another person there to hold all that pain for you and to carry all that weight together rather than you carry it all by yourself. And I really hope this episode really helped someone today. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Subscribe, follow. I'll see you guys on the next one.